Welcome to the Made in Monroe podcast. Today's conversation is one that is rooted in resilience, service, and leadership. I'm honored to sit down with Congresswoman Julia Letlow today, who represents Louisiana's 5th District in Washington. Her journey into public service was shaped by extraordinary circumstances, and what has followed is a deep commitment to advocating for rural communities, farmers, families, and the future of Northeast Louisiana. Congresswoman Letlow, thank you for being here today.
It is the highlight of my day, my week.
I want to start with what's been top of mind for so many people in our area, and that's storm recovery, just from the recent storms that hit our area. And so after the recent storms, what federal disaster or recovery funding has been secured for Northeast Louisiana, and how quickly can families realistically expect to feel that impact?
Sure. First, my heart goes out to my family, friends, everyone who has been so impacted by the ice storm in North Louisiana. Wherever I go, I'm talking about the experiences that we've had up here. My own parents weren't able to get out of their driveway for over a week and were without power. So it definitely hit home for me for sure. And I was so excited today to announce we just had a roundtable with all of our elected officials stating that the White House just got in touch with us that they are doing a Category A declaration, emergency declaration. So what that means is that FEMA now has the authority to come in and start helping with the recovery effort. And so needed in our community, as you know. FEMA was designed to help us out during natural disasters. Who would have ever thought the worst ice storm we've ever seen would hit North Louisiana? But when you do encounter those natural disasters, that's why we all pay taxes. We need that assistance to come back and help us recover. So again, could not be more appreciative to our local officials, sheriff's offices, police, everybody coming together to help neighbors, helping neighbors, to help everyone recover. But my heart goes out to everybody, and I'll continue to fight to make sure that they have the resources that they need.
Well, I think that's one of the really neat things just about our area, which, you know, being from here, is that neighbors, communities, leaders, they really do come together during a time like that to help each other and to do whatever they can to make the community, to help us recover from it, to make it better. Absolutely. Right?
I couldn't be prouder to call Monroe, Louisiana my home. Born and raised here, and just good people who help raise me. Yeah. And when disaster strikes, we know how to work together to rebuild, and we will.
Well, and it was crazy to drive around after that, just in our little area. I told people often, I'm like, we are not equipped for that. You know, we don't get that kind of weather all of the time, and so we're not equipped to come to handle it, to come out of it. And I think for us, it was, I mean, we drove around, and just to see the impact on our little area, I mean, it really did look like a war zone when you drove around with all of the trees, and just, I mean, even now it's better because of some of the cleanup that's happening around town, but it really did. I mean, it looked like a mess out there for a little while.
Yeah, it was our version of a hurricane.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've been sharing that across the state. You know, South Louisiana understands down trees, but North Louisiana, this was our version of a hurricane, and we need that assistance to come in.
Well, so how let's look to the future a little bit. So how can political leaders help us prepare a little bit better for storms like this in the future? How can we be better prepared in our area?
Absolutely. I just had this conversation with a roundtable of community leaders, and we need a plan moving forward. You know, we were promised with the infrastructure bill that we were going to have buried power lines. That never came to fruition. We have to work together, put our brilliant minds together to come up with a plan on how we're going to bury those power lines moving forward. That's not just a North Louisiana thing, that's a South Louisiana thing as well. You know, I always say if you invest on the front end, it will pay dividends to not have our linemen going out in harm's way after every storm, to, you know, putting their lives on the lines to get us back electricity and be connected again. So I'm going to push for that. I've kind of made it my cavalry cry after experiencing this in North Louisiana. We have to do something different. We have to change the way we operate. And so I'm going to be working definitely with our co-ops, with our PSC, with the federal agencies that are in charge to help us find a way so that we don't ever have to confront something like this again. We've learned. How do we
learn and do it differently?
Yeah, exactly. Move forward in a different way, a better way.
What frustrates you the most about disaster relief at the federal level?
The timing.
I think everybody would probably say that, right?
I have learned the saying, it takes an act of Congress, why that is a literal saying, that it just is so cumbersome. There's so much red tape. I'm up there fighting the bureaucracy on that. We have to make it easier for people, especially in their times of need. When people are hurting, the last thing they need to have to navigate is a cumbersome bureaucracy, red tape situation. So we're trying to streamline that, make it easier for people.
Too many hoops to jump through.
Wow. That's ridiculous.
Well, one of the things that storms highlight is something that we deal with long before the rain hits and long after, and that's infrastructure,
Yes.
right? It's something you just touched on, but drainage is a constant issue across Northeast Louisiana. Have you been able to secure funding for drainage improvements, and what infrastructure project is your top priority right now?
Absolutely. I have been able to work with Mayor Friday Ellis and Mayor Stacy Mitchell on these initiatives. Every year I have community project funding. They used to be called earmarks, now they're called community project funding, but that's a direct way for me to work with our mayors and parish presidents on those projects that are so important to them, to send dollars directly back to these communities. And so, gosh, I had the list in front of me, but we've been able to secure millions of dollars back to Monroe. The Calypso pump was one that we were just talking about in the roundtable, but I believe we just got $2.2 million for drainage issues for Monroe just in this last appropriation cycle. So water is scary. Wherever, it gives me a lot of anxiety. I've learned wherever it moves here, it's gonna hurt someone here, it's gonna hurt a farmer here, it's going to flood someone here. So it's something we definitely have to take seriously, and I've been able to secure a lot of funding for Northeast Louisiana for that.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, are we in a better position today than we were 5 years ago?
Yes, and that's thanks to all the people who have worked so closely with our team to be able to tout these wins that we've had all across. It was 24 parishes, now 21 parishes, but it's been the honor of my lifetime to represent every single parish and every single community. And you know, I can't help but think back to Luke always talking about, you know, God forbid you ever have to reach out to your congressperson for help or aid. But when you do, you need somebody that's going to be there for you. And it's been the honor of my lifetime to help deliver for Northeast Louisiana.
Well, I think you've done a good job. I think one of the things you've done so well is you've listened, right? And I think that's one of the biggest attributes of a leader, is to come in and to really listen to the people and to hear them, right? Because we can listen, it's a different thing to hear them and then to go do something about it. And I think you've done that. And so we appreciate that. Just in our area, I can say from our hometown, we appreciate that you've listened and that you've done something about it.
And I'm so grateful to everybody. You know, I always say this to whatever group I'm in. It'd be disingenuous of me to say that I'm an expert in your field. I'm not a farmer, you know, I'm not a banker, but whenever I'm with each industry, I ask them to pour into me, teach me about how to be a better champion for your industry in DC, and they have. And it's been the most beautiful partnership and enriched my life in so many ways, and I'm truly grateful to them.
I think too, you've gotten to know so many different parts, so many different facets, and just different areas that you probably didn't. I mean, you're like you said, you're not an expert in those areas, but your eyes have been opened, and you've been able to listen and go do something about it.
The teacher in me is a lifelong learner, so I'm just geeking out, you know, when they're teaching me everything that they can about their industry. So it's been awesome. Now the acronyms have thrown me off quite a bit, but you know, we have an acronym jar.
Details,
I know in our office we have an acronym jar. If anybody uses an acronym, we have to put money in it, you know, instead of the swear jar.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I need that. Oh my goodness. Well, agriculture is the backbone of Northeast Louisiana, and it always has been. When storms hit, our farmers feel it first and the hardest. And so our farmers are facing storm damage, rising input costs, and volatile commodity prices. What are you doing at the federal level to make sure that Louisiana farmers' voices are heard?
Everything we possibly can to help our producers, our farmers, our ag community. You want to talk about one of the industries that have poured into me the most, and I would be hard-pressed to find an industry that is kinder, warmer, have really gone out of their way to bring me up to speed on why it's so important that we protect our agriculture community. It really is a matter of national defense. If we can't, we saw that with the baby shortage, formula shortage. If we cannot feed ourselves, that's a matter of national security. Take an ice storm, for example, a couple days of trucks not being able to get up and down the road. we can't feed ourselves. That's a scary place of vulnerability. So making sure that our farmers have everything that they need, and when disaster strikes, making sure that they get the recovery dollars that they need to be able to plant again. So we've had some amazing wins working with our ag partners. When they went through that terrible drought a couple years ago, we're able to get them the aid they needed in a timely manner. When our soybeans were hit, we were able to get some really good wins in the One Big Beautiful Bill to address the commodity prices and to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. I want a full-blown farm bill. We need it. Where they're working on, they just put out the draft for, they call it a skinny farm bill, because so much was addressed in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So relief is on the way. It can't come too quickly for a farmer. And I'm passionate about making sure the next generation of farmers continue to produce, because we're losing a lot of them because it's just become so hard and costly and a gamble every year on whether you're going to be able to make it. And I don't want that for our producers. They give so much. And ag is my #1 industry in my district, and best believe I don't forget it.
Well, I mean, we need
That's
farmers, right? So we have to
right.
support them any way that we can.
That's
So
right.
just right now in the climate, are family farms at greater risk right now, smaller family farms?
I worry about it. I hear from them that a lot of the next generation, their children they see what their parents are going through, and they just don't know if it's worth the cost to worry about it year after year. And it's become so costly and burdensome, and you definitely don't want it to feel like that. The farmers for years have had such pride in their work, and as they should. So we're doing everything that we can to lessen that burden on them and make sure that they have what they need in order to feed us, to put food on the table. It's so important that we continue to support them.
Well, I think those generational farmers
Yes.
have such a vested just interest in it, right? Like you want that to continue.
Amen.
You want that legacy to continue. And
That's
so
right.
whatever we can do to support them and to be there for them and to help them continue on, I think is important.
Absolutely, and there is so much opportunity as well when you think about it. New technology, how drones will be impactful as well, the amount of data they'll have at their disposal, and the universities stepping up. I know ULM is playing an integral role in making sure that we're educating the next generation of farmers. So excited about where it's headed in North Louisiana. Want to continue to be an advocate.
So what long-term structural changes are needed for agricultural resilience?
Just more support as far as pricing goes, input cost. I hear from my farmers all the time about how costly it is, and that was just a matter of COVID, inflation, everything going up, pricing going up. Fertilizer, the price of input, just to make it work year to year. We got to do something about that. And I'm hopeful with this administration, with the Republican administration, they're going to see those prices start to go down and be able to find a little bit more comfort. So long term, we have to lower those input costs for our farmers. They have to be able to work with their banks to be able to borrow, and we just need to make it as seamless as possible for them because they're doing the real work out in the field. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you've also positioned yourself as a champion for children and for families, which brings us to the Parents' Bill of Rights.
Yes.
And so you've been very vocal about advocating for children and for families. Can you share more about the Parents' Bill of Rights and what you hope it accomplishes?
Oh, thank you. Parents' Bill of Rights. So while agriculture is my #1 industry and appropriations is where I spend most of my time up in DC, education has my heart, is my passion. And it's such an honor to be on the Education and Workforce Committee as well. That's my passion committee. And what happened during COVID, Colby, that it didn't necessarily happen in Louisiana. We do it right down here. But for the first time, parents were sitting at the table on their tablets, seeing what their children were being taught in the public school system. And for a lot of the parents, they weren't necessarily okay with what they were seeing. And so they did the right thing. They went to their local school boards, shared their concerns, their issues. Many of them were rebuffed, turned away. Many were even labeled domestic terrorists by our own federal government. In my opinion, that should never happen, especially when they went lawfully to try to make some positive change. And so we had a roundtable with a group of parents out of Virginia that were expressing their concern about what was happening in the public school system. Not only that, but violence that was taking place on campuses that was not being reported to parents, library books that were a bit graphic in nature that parents weren't aware were in the libraries. It was really a matter of transparency. So I was listening to those parents and hearing their heart and putting myself in their places, thinking about my children being in grade school one day and how I would want to have full transparency as a parent. And so went to the drawing table, put together the Parents' Bill of Rights. What's great about it, Colby, is we've had this in Louisiana for years, and it was a bipartisan effort, Democrat, Republican coming together saying parents should always have a seat at the table when it comes to their child's education. You as a mom, you and your husband should always, your voices should be heard, especially if there's something going on that you want to talk to the administration about. So we put that together. Passed it through the House. It was an amazing experience. It was my first. It was one of the top 5 bills when Republicans took back over the House, and what an incredible experience to go advocate for moms and dads that we know best how to educate our children. These are our kids. They're not the government's. Right. So, and then what's happened as of late with the new Trump administration is taking back the locus of control from the federal government and putting it back in local communities and the states where it belongs. I go back to Louisiana. We were the bottom of the pack for years under the prior administration. We've only been going up in our scores. And that comes from amazing leadership at the state level with the governor's support, the superintendent, Kate Brumley, and all of the teachers and principals across the state partnering with parents. Parent involvement.
Working together.
We know how to do it best. It's a local activity, educating our children, and so I couldn't be prouder of a piece of legislation to be able to pass through. But now with this new administration and the president signing his executive orders, parents, you don't have to worry anymore because you will always have a seat at the table and no longer have to be worried that you're going to be on a watch list by your own government. That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, which leads me to the question, how do you respond to critics who say education decisions should remain primarily local?
Critics who say they should, they should remain local.
Yeah. Right.
Again, I go back to, these are our kids.
Yeah.
What does somebody in a union in Washington, D.C. know about how my child is reading at, what their literacy level is? It's mind-blowing to me that, and then you looked at the Department of Education, they were doing a deep audit of, these are just people sitting in cubicles,
right.
When we could have been using that money, teachers' pay raises, mm-hmm. Working on the state level, infrastructure for our schools. There's so many other ways we could be using those dollars. Now, I am a supporter of Title I funding. It's important that tax dollars go to support our rural communities, our rural schools. I'm pretty sure Start Elementary would not be there without Title I funding. But the majority of funding comes from the state level, from state tax dollars, and that's the way it should be. And if that's the case, then education should be a local issue, not a federal issue.
I agree. How do you ensure that this supports teachers?
In my mind, teachers should be just on the same pedestal that we place doctors.
Yes.
They are the heroes in my eyes. And we've asked so much of our teachers as of late. We've asked them to be mental health care providers. We've asked them to be policemen. We've asked them to, and that's too much. We need to provide those resources to give them what they need to go in and educate our children, which is what we pray over them every day. So any support we can provide for our teachers to make their jobs easier, in my opinion, I'm always going to be fighting for that.
Right. Well, and my husband and I have been very involved with our kids and their education because it's extremely important to us. And so one of the things that we discuss all the time is our teachers, they have our kids more than we do during the day, right? Which I mean, so support them, give them what they need, whatever they need, whatever they ask for, to be able to better educate our kids, but also be mindful of their time during the day and the different hats that you're asking them to wear, because if they're spread too thin, then they can't do the job that they've been hired to do.
Amen. And then our children suffer.
Right, and our kids suffer, and their grades suffer, which, I mean, then we suffer as, as a community, and so I think it's all of those parts and pieces kind of working together. And I think bringing awareness to that. I think a lot of times that parents are not aware, and sometimes it's because they don't want to be aware, right? It's easier to just cover your head, but I think bringing awareness to it, shedding light on some of those things, and then saying how can you get involved, and how can you be a part, and how can you change some of it.
Right. Take an active role. And we've seen this play out in Louisiana. It's been so good. Our charter school programs, parents coming together. If there is, this is the perfect example, the ACE Academy. Right here in Monroe, a group of mama bears coming together and saying, there's not a school that can provide the services that my autistic child needs. The waiting list for this academy, it took them 2 years to go through the process. They never gave up. Made it all the way through, and now that charter school is providing services that go well beyond what we could offer in the public school system for children suffering from autism. So just the idea that if parents don't like what they have at their disposal, that now through the charter process, you can work on building a different school, a different option. Huge supporter of school choice. If God forbid your child is in a failing school, you should have the autonomy to be able to take them out and put them in a school that is not failing, to set them up for future success until we get that school back up on its feet. So it all goes back again to parents having a say, parents having the right to choose. I'll continue fighting for that. But just like you said, we can do more to help and support our teachers as well. They're the heroes in my eyes.
I 100% agree. They are the
Yep.
heroes.
So whatever we can do, thank you for all that you're doing
course,
for them. Okay, I want to shift a little bit. We've
Sure.
talked about kind of our region and our area and just the impacts and how you're involved in making an impact in this area, but I want to shift to Washington for just a little bit, because I know that people have questions about how things work there, and you're deeply involved in that. So what does Washington most misunderstand about Northeast Louisiana?
Oh, that it is the backbone of the whole country. That our rural communities, they're just the salt of the earth, hardworking, good people who, what they really want, what I hear from most of my constituents, they just want the federal government to get out of their way, get out of their business, quit taxing them so much, and just quit being a burden. Come in whenever we have a natural disaster and help out the way they should. But for the most part, leave us alone. Let us do our work here. And I think that goes for the majority of the country, and I hope that DC will spend a little bit more time realizing the importance. And I think they have with this new administration.
I do agree. I think they have. It takes time to turn things around, right?
Yes.
It really does. And we keep going back to that little word time that we don't like, but it does take time. I think even in Washington with the new administration, I think it takes time to turn things around and to get things going in a direction that you want it to. And even when you get stuff turned around, it still takes time to get it moving in that direction, right? And so I think if we can be patient.
Yes. And especially when people go to file their tax returns this year, I think they're saying close to $11,000 more in your return. That's a huge deal for middle income families. That is a huge.
It's a win.
That's a win, and so I'm hopeful, come April, people will really start to feel. And then we just had a good report that inflation's coming down. So, things are, just like you said, it takes a while to turn a ship all the way around, but we're getting there, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
Well, and I think for us, we don't see all that goes into turning that ship around, right? We see what we're told, we see what the media wants us to see, or but I don't think we see all of the details and all of the back end. And so I just think it takes time. And I think if we'll be patient, we're going to get there.
That's right.
You represent a deeply rural district in a very urban political environment. How do you make sure that those voices are not drowned out?
that's why it's so important that I'm up there,
Right.
that we're continuing to fight for our rural communities. I think this last election cycle, the rural communities stood up and said, our voices will not be stifled.
Right.
It's not just about LA or New York. We are just as important to this country, if not work harder than anyone else.
Right.
So it's important that you have somebody up there fighting for rural communities. One thing that just by going around listening to my smaller town mayors, parish presidents, there is funding out there for our rural communities, but it wasn't getting down to the intended recipients. Because if you go to Tallulah or, Rayville, they don't have a grant writer on staff, to be able to go apply for those grants. So we were able to work through the appropriations process, through the Delta Regional Authority, to work on a program to have designated grant writers for our rural communities. I mean, that's what it's all about, to help them go fight for those dollars that all of the bigger metropolitan areas are getting, and bring those back to the rural communities that we serve. So that's just one example of how you need a rural representative up there fighting for you.
You need the right one. We need the right one. That's right. So I think this is going to be a fun one that I think a lot of people want to know. But what does working across the aisle actually look like behind the scenes?
People ask me wherever I go what's been the most surprising thing about Congress. And I just thought it was going to be exactly like it was on television, portrayed to me, that everybody's going to be fighting and you can't get anything done. And then you get up there and you realize there are some really lovely people from all across this country, from other rural communities and districts, who are just trying to do the best job that we can to represent the people who sent us there. And we know that it's about working together to get things done. Now, don't get me wrong, you have your fringes on both sides.
Right.
Who soak up a lot of the media time because they say outlandish things. But then there's, 400 or so other great people who we really do work together to try to get things done. And Luke said this, I say it all the time, I will work with anyone who will help me deliver results to the 5th District, because that's what I feel like the people sent me up there to do. And so we've been able to do that, and it's been an awesome experience. And, I think if you understand that we're all children of the Lord, and you treat people as human beings first. And yes, you may disagree, and yes, you stick to your morals and your principles, and you can hash that out. But at the end of the day, go break bread together, have a meal together. And let me tell you real quick, there's this room right outside Statutory Hall. I don't know if you've heard me tell this story, but it's a room for women to go. They gave it to us because, imagine this, the men never thought that women would actually be represented in the House of Representatives and actually need a restroom to go. So they gave us this room to go for, respite and whatever. There's these couches there. But when you walk right in, what immediately hits you is a portrait, a painting of a woman. She just happens to be the last woman to represent Louisiana in the House of Representatives. Her name was Lindy Boggs. She and I both came to Congress, unfortunately, under similar circumstances. She was known as being a consensus builder. She was all about service and her faith. And right when you walk into that room, there is her face. It's named the Lindy Boggs Room. And when we walk in that room, yes, it's only women, but we put our politics aside and we talk about our children and we talk about our dreams and our hopes for this country and the future that we want to leave for them. More legislation has come out of that room by just building relationships, and putting our children first and the future of the country first. And it's all about building relationships and working together. And that was the spirit of Lindy Boggs, and that's something I take with me. My only regret in life is that I never got to meet her.
Oh, well, and I love that because that is such a positive spin on what goes on up there, because I think the narrative that we get a lot of times is so negative.
Right.
But like you said, you can disagree respectfully, right?
Absolutely.
You can disagree. You can hold tight to your morals and your values and still love one another. So we've talked about Northeast Louisiana. We've talked about DC a little bit. Now we really want to talk about you.
have anything going on.
You do. So before we wrap up,
Yes.
I know that while serving in Congress, you've recently gotten engaged. We're planning a wedding,
Yes.
sort of.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, can you share any details about that?
Gosh, it has just been such a blessing, Colby. Everyone in this community knew Luke, and my goodness, I felt so blessed and honored to have found love once. And if it never happened again, that was okay, because I had that experience, and he taught me so much about public service and what it means to serve other people, and how actually government should work for the people, not the other way around. Like, I take all those lessons that he gave me to heart. Making every moment count. We're not promised tomorrow. He taught me all those things, and such a sweet partnership and a marriage. So I felt incredibly blessed. If that never happened again, I was going to be happy. I have these 2 beautiful babies, and they're growing, and then God blesses you again. And so just could not be happier, more excited to start this new chapter with Kevin. He's from Baton Rouge, and a Louisiana boy. That was important. But just another sweet partnership, and we just build each other up through life's up and downs, and I'm just feel really grateful to have him in my life.
Well, I feel like if you chose him, he must be pretty incredible, right? Absolutely.
He's a great guy. So I was able to introduce him to the chamber the last time we were up here. Put him on the spot. He was not expecting that. He's a very private person, but he's just an overall amazing dad, just family man, and I just couldn't be happier. So.
Incredible about your wedding and all of the planning that goes into that. But a couple of more questions. How do you balance, or how do you guys balance work and family and just life in general?
I think it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and giving yourself, Colby, grace. Whenever I speak to women, I think it's so important for there to be examples of women doing it. And this is what is so important about the House of Representatives. I'll tell you one more quick story. Early on, I was serving on education and workforce, and I was having one of those days where I'm looking around and I'm just thinking, my gosh, I'm not qualified to be here. I'm just a teacher. I go, all these doctors and lawyers, and what am I doing here? And I was just internally struggling with that. And I had this amazing chairwoman. Her name was Dr. Virginia Fox, and she is a pistol. Just think about your great-grandmother, and we were all terrified of her, but in the best way. She was an amazing leader. She's still serving to this day. And I think she could tell I was struggling a little bit. And she said, Julia, don't for 1 second question why the Lord has put you here for such a time as this. She said, do you realize that in the next Congress, we're going to reauthorize the Higher Education Act? And do you know how many people on our side have any experience in higher education on this committee of 50 or so people? And I said, no, man. She said, you and me. She said, that's why we need you here. And then that's why it dawned on me. Oh, this is the people's house. We the people, because you need representation from all walks of life. So while we need doctors and lawyers, but we need entrepreneurs, we need small business owners, we need stay-at-home moms, we need educators, people from all walks of life to lend their voices, because legislation is not made in a vacuum, and it has these consequences that filter down into every fabric of this country. And that's why we need people from every walk of life. So that's why I tell women, go be an example. I want my daughter to know that whatever her dreams are, she can go do it and still have a family and still have children, and her children will admire her for it and lift her up and say, thanks, Mom. When life knocks you down, you don't just crawl into the fetal position and give up.
Right.
You keep moving forward with faith and hope, and you get up every day and you put your makeup on and you get your clothes on, and you go 1 foot in front of the other, and you go make a difference and make every single second count. And I teach my children that when life knocks you down, if you can find a way to get outside of yourself every day. And that's why wherever I go, I thank the people of Louisiana and the 5th District for giving me this opportunity, because it's given my life so much purpose and meaning and healing to get outside of myself every day and serve other people. It's been the honor of a lifetime.
I say often when people ask me, do you ever feel guilty for working and for leaving them? And the response I have back to them is, I really think it makes me a better mom.
Amen.
Right? And I think that it's important to me for them to see somebody going to work, somebody
Amen.
going to, that we work hard for what we have too, right? And that we give back. We give back to our community and give back to those around us.
That's
and so those things are important.
God gives us all different gifts and callings in life.
Right.
So my mom stayed at home with us. That's the hardest job
It is the hardest
in the world. I don't have what it takes. I tried. I didn't know what it takes.
No.
I was like, Luke, I got to go back to work, But God gives us all our different gifts and giftings in life, and just to know what that is, that purpose, that calling for your life, and let your children see you do that. What a gift for them.
Well, what's one thing you're protecting during this busy season?
One thing that I protect for me, I used to work out, Colby, because, I wanted to stay fit. And no, I exercise now for endorphins and for my mental health, and and just to have that time to zone in and get outside of your head, and so that, but also that mixed with prayer and contemplation and just being mindful and thanking the Lord for all the gratitude and gifts in my life. And I found that, I started that practice during COVID when things were so scary. It was such a scary time, and I just had a newborn. And I remember a friend, a mutual friend of ours, saying, Julia, every day take time to express gratitude and be present, and just breathe in that your thankfulness for the health of your children and what you have right now. And I've found that if I do that every day, then I have no regrets for how I live my life every day, and because I truly made the most of every moment. And that's something that I won't negotiate. I'm going to keep that practice in my life.
That's something we can all learn from.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
that. Thank you for your time today, too. It is very evident from sitting down with you that your heart is rooted here in Northeast Louisiana. We could not be more grateful for your time, for your service. Thank you for everything that you're doing.